we're actually going to be talking about a collection of many readings I did for your father-in-law, Gordon. It was found out or said that he was malnourished and treated actually quite badly by his stepmother, who was said to be cruel.
They were poor. That would have been another food source where they could snack.
In the wild.
Being told that the teacher used to bring them food. And at the end, she was there when he drew his last breath. The feeling over the room was just, wow.
Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Medium's Table. I'm your host, Michelle Gardner. This podcast is your personal invitation to join me at the intersection of the everyday and the extraordinary. Together, we'll explore the magic of mediumship, share spiritual stories, and connect with fellow mediums on this incredible journey. So grab a seat, pour yourself a cuppa, and come join us at the Medium's Table, where spirits gather and stories unfold. On today's episode, I'd like to welcome to the Medium's Table my sister, Lisa.
Hi.
In today's podcast, we're actually going to be talking about a collection of many readings I did for your father-in-law, Gordon. And Gordon had a very impoverished childhood, and through family stories, it was found out or said that he was malnourished and treated actually quite badly by his stepmother, who was said to be cruel. And this was after his real mother passed away when he was about 4 years old. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yep. And his original mother left behind 6 children, Gordon being one of them, and also a baby.
Yeah, I think the baby was about 10 months old. Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I only knew Gordon by acquaintance because we lived so far apart, and he's your in-laws, so you know what I mean. I didn't really have anything to do with him. I may have had a brief, how you going conversation with him, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So at the time of these readings, I did not know his past. His past has come out during these readings, or really who he was, other than he was your father-in-law.
Yeah.
So I've got my notes here, and I've broken down the readings and made it one long grouped topic together. So I've separated all the topics, childhood, adulthood, so it's easier for the listeners to understand what is happening in the reading, because spirit can sometimes come through and they're a bit here, there. We really don't have any control over what they want to talk about, how they come in, which order it's in. They talk about what they want to talk about. Okay, so in some of the readings, there were instances where he would show me scenarios like slideshows, where it would be one slideshow after another. And sometimes we just paid, like Gordon would stop one, and these were the ones that he wanted to pay particular attention to, more so than others. I've removed personal messages for privacy readings, as I do in many readings. Let's talk about how old would Gordon be today?
So today he'd be about 95.
Right.
So we're looking at the early 1930s when he was born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Considerable amount of time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start the readings with Gordon's childhood. Now, Gordon shows me areas out in the country somewhere, but there's just so much overgrown grass. There's a shed, a dirt driveway with washout ruts in it, and just a lot of long grass everywhere. And if anyone knows typical Australian countryside or the bush, it's always usually full of long grass, usually dead long grass. Mm-hmm. And unless it's a paddock, then it's lush and green. But that's a typical Australian bush setting. Gordon takes me out on this dirt track, a dirt trail. It's surrounded by bush on either side, like something you'd see up around, and for my reference, Hiawatha, which is a place near where we come from, a small country town in Victoria. It's beautiful and lush up in the mountains. It's like that it's like that mountainous sort of countryside.
Yep.
What do we know about that?
Oh, so he did, when he was a child, they did live on a farm in country Victoria, and it was, yes, hilly. So that was correct, yes.
Okay. When Gordon was growing up, there was a family of 3 girls. One would have been a teenager, and there's one in between about 10 and another one who is younger, who may have been about 5 or 6. And they all lost a parent, as in a parent of theirs died while they were younger girls. This would have been when he was younger, because I'm seeing them out in a bush setting. They're all mucking around on a swing that hangs from a huge old gum tree. And these girls who lost a parent were there with him, so he knows them. I know this person that they lost to be their mother.
Yes, that's correct.
Right. One of Gordon's sisters popped in momentarily, as every now and then I started to hear a young girl's voice. And this can happen in readings where a spirit will come through and they'll bring through another spirit with them, or it's almost like they piggyback on that spirit that's sort of got maybe stronger energy, a better connection to the sitter, or sometimes even the reader, and they'll come through and they'll almost like slipstream in with another spirit. So this is not unusual, and it does happen. There has been times when, I've had a spirit want to take over the reading and I've had to ask them to kindly step back because it's not their reading or their time. But Gordon talks a lot about hardships as a child, having to run things at home, almost like the children played a huge role and had a lot of responsibility on them to do things. That's how he brings it forward.
Yes, every able body had to help on the farm, and there were 15 children in the family before they left the farm. So there was babies popping out all the time. So the older ones, where they could, would help out on the farm, and then the younger ones around the home, because they couldn't, be trusted out there or they weren't physically able to. So, yes, that is correct. Yep.
Okay. And just for reference sake, for those that are watching the video episode of this, Mum Aziz's got her notes in front of her because you've had to verify this with your mother-in-law.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I did. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
So
and it's a lot. There's a lot of information here. It's like pages and pages. And it's like,
Yeah. Okay. Gordon shows me crunching apples. He talks about crunching apples. In another reading, your brother-in-law, Gordon's son, David, I know he mentions crunching apples in his reading. So I do, it was almost like, why? Now there's 2 of them bringing through these crunching apples. I knew there had to be something going on around these apples because of the reading that David brought through, and then now Gordon showing me again. And this takes me back to the farm. There's apple trees and there's lots of long grass that grows around the apple trees. It's almost like no one ever cuts the grass there. It's always just long. There's so much long grass, but through the grass, he's showing me that there was a couple of apple trees growing in their yard. He says the apples are significant. So the reason he's going back to the farm is also because of a lot of trauma that happened at the farm as a child.
Yes, they were poor. So getting food where they could was a bonus because then it was free.
Yeah.
And as we know, apple trees do grow for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So, and it makes me wonder too how the blackberries were. Do you remember picking blackberries?
Yeah.
So that would have been another food source where they could snack.
In the wild.
Yeah, just growing freely. It's free food. Again, they were poor.
Yeah. Okay. Throughout these readings, everything that he shows me is based on a lot of children, and it's always out in the bush. They're playing in the bush, rope swings from trees, and Gordon brings me a lot of different scenarios, like quick scenarios of these children being out in the bush and running around and all that sort of thing, basically doing what kids do. Everything he's showing me at this point is from his childhood, being out on the land with a lot of children. I think the biggest thing is, though, he's showing me the work and the hardship that went into being out there at that time. Gordon also mentions about being really badly hurt and about trying to call the stepmother, as in call out to her, and the stepmother's name's Ada. And I know this from a reading where Gordon brought her through, but we'll get to that at another stage. Gordon states this as a fact, as if he's recalling this as an adult. He shows me other children in ill health, in ragged clothes, and he talks about the ill repair. like they're in such poor health with oversized jackets that the jackets are just not in a good state, like rips, tears, holes, bare feet.
Secondhand.
Yep, bare feet, bare legs, sitting around a wooden floor, and there's just a lot of despair. He's saying she, as in Ada, didn't want him to discuss that. I just want to quickly reflect on, I actually do remember that scene. When I talk about it, it's like it jogs a memory. And I got a visual, not only were they sitting around in oversized clothes and in despair, but I do remember them always looking dirty, like they needed a good bath. But anyway, what do we know about this?
Well, there has been a lot of stories which around the family, and it has affected, I'm going to say the first 6 or first 5, really, not the baby, but the first 5 boys. It affected them into adulthood about, how they grew up and the lack of like abundance of food. They were growing boys.
Yeah.
So there was stories around the family of that, and they didn't talk about it a lot, but when they did, it was really quite sad,
Yeah.
But that was the time. That's what happened to a lot of people.
Yeah.
In communities. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Gordon tells me how him and his siblings, always did a circle. And I see them sitting on this really old single bed. The bed had, like those old woolen blankets that they used to have way back in the day on it. And they're sitting around in a sort of a circle, putting their arms around each other like in kinship, for comfort and for warmth. They would kind of all lean into the center towards each other. It's almost like not only, they're supporting each other, probably without realizing they're doing it as kids, but also because it was cold. Gordon shows me with an oversized coat on as a child, like standing up, and his hands were completely lost in the sleeves. It's hanging down midway between his knee and his ankles. But every time I see him as a child, he's barefoot. It's like he's always dressed in summer clothing, shorts and T-shirt.
Yes, and I've seen old photos of these too. So this is true, but also, they got secondhand clothing, and then what they would be handed down.
Yeah.
And they're in what we call in the country in Victoria, in the Otways. So it is known to snow.
Oh, yep.
Up there. So yes, it was
cold.
Hard, cold. It was, yep.
Yeah. He shows me the compassion of a teacher. He shows me standing in front of her. She's sitting down and she's running her hand over the top of his hair to the back of his neck. And she brings him in to give him a hug. It is very difficult for her to see the state that he's in when he goes to school. She's a teacher that has a lot of compassion. He says the name, which sounded like Miss Ringlet or Miss Ringlet, something like that, like he's trying to bring through the name of the teacher. What do you know about this?
So the teacher, I've been told that the teacher used to bring them food.
Wow.
To school so they could eat.
Yeah,
yep. So that's, so that was, she used to bring, extra food for them. Yep.
Okay. Which was sometimes in that day and age a little bit unheard of, especially if majority of people were doing it hard or on a minimum wage.
Yeah, yep.
Gordon asks his younger brother how he is feeling. Now, his younger brother is still living. It's like he's looking over the veil at him. So we sort of know about that, but I feel like there was an element when he was in the human world. This is when Gordon was in the human world. He wanted to, I guess you could say, see his younger brother punished. Or I guess there's like a little bit of payback for what happened. Like what's that about?
So this younger brother was the 10-month-old baby that his auntie Ada came to help Gordon's dad look after these 6 boys.
Yeah.
But because he was so young, she saw him as hers. So I guess she, like you could say, she favoured him over the older boys, so to speak. Yeah.
So naturally, she would have bonded with the baby because he was still young, innocent.
Young.
He needed,
more care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, for listeners, we do this story does evolve. So there is going to be another episode where we do talk about the stepmother, Ada.
Yep, and more insights into her side of the story.
Into her side of the story and what was said about her, the treatment of the children, because Gordon brought her through to rectify a few
family
rumours. Yes, rumours. Yes, that's right, exactly. So there's far more to this story, but we go into that in another episode. Now let's talk about the immediate family. There's an older woman. She's really skinny. There's two. So there's two women that also come through, but there's one that's older who's really skinny. One looks older than the other, and they're just very, very poorly dressed. Scraggly hair. They're out in the country. One of the women is the mother, his mother. As Gordon says the word to me, mother. Gordon brings in this is a lady again, and I hear her talking. She sounds very well spoken with an English accent. She says, "I'm very sorry." And something about stabilizing or apologizing. Sometimes when spirit comes through, the words can be a little bit muffled. Mm-hmm. She feels like she may have been a nurse and they're carrying or holding on to the metal frame or the metal pole that holds up the fluid bags. There is a prominent English accent.
Yes, this sounds to be like when his mother passed.
Okay.
When the baby was 10 months old, she had an infection and they were too late taking her to hospital because, of course, the husband was out working in the fields and, you like to think you get over stuff. But by the time she sent one of the kids off to tell him that she was really sick, and by the time they got him to the hospital, there's all these factors of getting him to the hospital. I want to say they had a horse and cart back then, but I'm not 100% sure. They were too late getting out. So that would be the hospital. Now, did you miss a part of Gordon shows me a larger lady? She's a little bit plump, big bosomed, where she's having a tea?
Oh, that's right, because you have my notes.
I do have your notes, and I'm thinking, hang on, we just skipped right over that. I said,
okay, all right, let's go back to that one then. Yes, he does show me a larger woman. She's a little bit plump, big bosomed, dressed in a long skirt. This would have been a long time ago, and she wore a long sleeve blouse. She was dressed more as a commoner, as a poorer person with a shawl over her shoulders. Gordon shows me her sitting at the kitchen table, and what little bit of fine china there was used for tea or visitors when visitors came over. Gordon felt like it was just so ridiculous. It was an attempt to be fancy and over the top, and it just wasn't coming off. It was just ridiculous to him, and he did not understand why people had to be like that.
So I did discuss this with my mother-in-law, and she talks about the ranks, where everyone sits in society. And back then, like, they were poor. So with stature, it's like going to, not that they went to church. I don't think they went to church, but, you dress in your Sunday best.
Yeah.
It's the only outfit you wear for church. So they would have had their good crockery, for when visitors come, because back then you treat them like royalty. Yeah. So you present the best of everything that you have. Yeah. To show them how special they are, and all this kind of stuff. So obviously, as a child, he just thought it was ridiculous. Yeah. Trying to like put on the airs. Yeah. When it wasn't, they had no airs.
All the play acting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And realistically, back then, gossip was gospel, wasn't it?
It was, yes. Yeah.
So, how they were treated at that house, well, word would spread quite quickly. Yeah. And everybody believed what everybody said, that's
the small town.
Yeah, the gossip. Yeah.
Yes.
Geez, those small towns love gossip, don't they?
There's nothing else to do. So anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so adult life. Let's talk about Gordon's adult life. Gordon shows me a field. There's long grassy weeds and there's bush surrounding it. They're looking like they've got to walk through there. It's like they're looking through it and they've got to walk through there. And it's a bit challenging walking through all that long grass. They're saying something about there's a chart, some sort of chart, and they've got to walk through this area. He also shows me a pine forest. So again, we're out in the country, pine forest, pine trees. He shows me the side of a hill and it's quite rainforesty. There's tall trees, there's tree ferns, but it's not just your regular Australian bush. So this is more lush. It's very, again, the rainforesty, damp, green, and beautiful.
So what he's showing you is when he worked in the Forestry Commission. So what they call it now, Department of Natural Resources or something like that.
Oh, right. I'm not sure. Yeah.
So that's was his job is where they chart the new roads or clearing the bush, maintaining the area.
Yeah,
so that's what he would have been showing you when he worked in the Forestry Commission.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right.
And it's beautiful up there. And it is rainforest, damp. Yeah, it's just beautiful. So you got that right. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Sounds like I just feel like I want to take a road trip now.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that's beautiful. Yeah.
Gordon takes me to a farm. I've been to this farm before. So David's, and this was through David, again, Gordon's son in spirit, showed me this in a reading. So it's almost like, hang on, I'm familiar with this. He shows me many times of the year where there was tall, yellow, dry grass, around the paddocks. Gordon says he had to learn to run fast because he's always chasing after those kids, and they were his young sons. So it's like, he says this in a joking way, as in they kept him on his toes. The farmhouse was off a dirt road quite out in the country.
Yeah, they did live on the farm. Actually, my husband was born while they were there. And David, there's photos of him when he was 1 year old and no one believed him. So they took photos of him climbing a fence to the open paddocks and dams. Like he was off. He was, they got into mischief,
Adventurous.
And then they had to worry about the snakes as well. But anyway, that's more stories. But anyway, So that's, 100%.
He also shows me rounding cows up and milking. Gordon brings me the feeling at that farmhouse that he knew they weren't going to stay there. That wasn't the life he wanted, and it wasn't the life he wanted for his wife either. It was almost like it was a necessity for the time being.
Yep, and I have confirmed this. Yes, that's correct. And she was a farmer's daughter, so she never wanted to marry a farmer.
Yeah.
And when they married, he had an office job. So he wasn't a farmer when they married. So so she's like, but she still went along with it. So
right.
But that's correct.
I'm seeing someone painting the cornices, painting around the corners of the roof, the ceiling inside the house, repainting basically. And this house feels old. I feel like this would have been the inside of the farmhouse. The person painting was a female, and I actually felt like it was Beryl doing the painting, his wife doing the painting.
Yep, that's correct. She actually got her sister to look after the kids while she spent, I want to say she said about 2 weeks just painting the entire house inside and out. Oh, yeah, she would have done it properly too. Yeah. Yep, so that's correct.
Yeah. I'm seeing kangaroos popping up out of the tall grass in paddocks, and then I hear Gordon say, "Kangaroos for sale."
They used to go shooting the kangaroos because they would destroy the crops. That's their livelihood. And there was a story which I'm not gonna tell, but my mother-in-law Beryl, she was actually with him at the time, and there was there was an incident and she didn't like it, so she never went shooting again. He's a farmer, so this is what farmers do. And back then there would have been an abundance, mobs of kangaroos. Not like it is today, but it would have, and again they destroy the crops. So they had to deal with that.
That's just farm life, wasn't it?
It was. Yes, that's correct.
Gordon shows me old black leather shoes. It's like the laces are missing. The sole's coming away at the tip of the toes from the top of the leather shoe piece. They're really worn out and had it. These are really old shoes. They were his as an adult. What he's basically portraying is the hardship of still needing new shoes, even as an adult. Gordon also shows me snowfields, building a snowman, being in the snow, and it looks like this is an area on a hill or a mountain, whatever country you're in that you want to call it, and the name Bulla.
Yeah, so there is a Mount Bulla in Victoria. But it could have been a holiday. No one can remember about this. But again, the snow is not very far away.
Yeah.
So it's a possibility. Yeah, it could have been a day trip. With them. So we're not sure about that.
Yeah. Gordon talks about the penalties, and then he says, "Oh yeah, paying taxes."
Yes, there was some interaction with the ATO. It was before I met my husband, but yes, I totally understand that, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Yes. For listeners in other countries that aren't in Australia, the ATO is the Australian Tax Office.
Yes.
So, which may be like, is it the IRS? No, maybe in America?
Oh, maybe, but all we knew is not to bring up the subject because he would get very angry and upset. It's like, oh, don't talk about it.
Okay. All right. We'll leave that one right there. When Gordon sat down like on a couch or in an armchair or a chair with arms, he shows me bending his wrist so that his fingers, the tips of his fingers were touching the arm. And I'll show this for those that are watching on YouTube, touching the arm of the chair. I actually felt the sensation and the heaviness in my arm like it was dissociated and I needed to do it. So it was almost like he would have his fingers down, or, you know, they'd be resting, but he'd have his fingers on the top. It was almost like when he spoke, it was like
a tapping. And I remember him doing this. It's like, I don't even think he realized he did it. It was, I don't know whether it would be nervous energy, like, like when you cross your legs and you start kicking your foot out.
Yeah, yep.
It was kind of like that.
Just a habit.
Yeah. So I do remember him. As soon as you said that, I went, oh my God, I remember him doing that.
Yeah. Gordon also showed me his willingness to help others. He may not have had much, but there was that willingness to help others as well. He had that very compassionate side and understanding coming from his family history of growing up. He didn't like to see people go without, particularly any children go without food. He did not like to see anyone go without. If he could help it, no one would go without. But these were necessities like food. So this is where if he was going to help out, it would be with necessities like food, not just, because you wanted to go to the cinema. It was necessities. He says first he talked to them and then he watched, assessing the necessity and the need of someone who may be doing or having a hard time. You know, people sometimes they did it hard. He would look at the actual necessity and need and what it was that that was the actual necessity. Was it food? Was it clothing? What was it? As much as there was that desire to help, he really assessed who seriously needed it. So he wasn't just willy-nilly. It's almost like no one could take advantage of him because he would carefully observe, calculate, and then make a decision. Was this real or were they just looking for handouts?
So I can confirm this is 100% true because it actually happened to me. But it was there was things that were holding my husband off from having children, and I desperately wanted to have children. And so he helped us along a little bit, not much. And at the time I was shocked because I did not expect it. And it was really a gift. And I was just in shock that he actually did it. And so I 100% can confirm that's what he was. But he was also like, I remember being sick once and I asked for, like I had the flu, so I asked for if he could get me some mandarins. When he buys in bulk. He come back with this huge bag full of mandarins and I had to stop eating because I was starting to feel sick. There was just so many of them and I couldn't eat them all. But it's just like, not just a handful, like just give me like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I had like a couple of dozen, I reckon, mandarins. But this is,
wow.
So this is what he was, if he could, he would supply as much as he could.
Yeah,
to help you out. Yeah, God, yeah. To it, almost to a fault. But this is, again, a reflection of him growing up in his childhood. So this is that where you can see snippets of it coming out. So that was that's 100%.
Yeah. Wife and children, let's go into that category. Let's talk about his wife, Beryl. Gordon reflects to him sitting back and just watching Beryl, just watching her move around, just watching how she is and who she is.
Yeah, so particularly when they were getting ready, she said she remembered, he'd be ready in 5 minutes. But she dressed to the nines. So she would take her time and she was pottering around, doing this and doing that. And he'd just lay there and just watch her. I'm sure she would have been talking the whole time.
Yeah,
she was doing it, but it was a process of getting ready, and he'd just sit back and just watch her because he was ready.
Yeah.
So she does remember that. Yeah, so she can confirm that. Yep.
Yeah. I asked if he had any messages for Beryl, and he says he wants to thank her for watching him, as in towards the end, just being there and watching over him. She was his heart and soul. I just got goosebumps saying that.
It just makes me want to cry. Yeah, this was true when he was bedridden. And they had an accommodation house, so they still had to work, but there was a way they could communicate if he needed her. And at the end, she was there when he drew his last breath. And she still comments today about how peaceful it was. She said the feeling over the room was just wow. And so they asked to have him stay there for a little while, just so he could just lay there, and she stayed with him, just laying there with him, just feeling this complete peace. And she, I just got goosebumps, just the spiritual feeling energy about it. Yeah, she said it was just amazing. So they did put off calling the what do they call them, not the coroner, no, who was the funeral house to get him? The funeral place. So they did just say, take their time, and so she did spend that time and a little bit more with him afterwards.
Right. He mentions about Beryl wanting to give up or give in. There's a scenario where he's saying to her, it's not your fault, it's not your fault. All the things that have happened, it's not your fault. With family and everything else, he's telling her it's not her fault. And he portrays this as an underlying thing for her, that it's not her fault.
I do understand this. I don't want to go into it, but I do understand. We've talked about it, and I didn't even realise that she was feeling like that. But yes, I can confirm that. Yep.
Okay. He shows me the entryway to a hospital. Doesn't look like a huge city hospital. It looks like a smaller country hospital. He's showing me Beryl, and that he's referring to the hospital being related to her. Something's happening or happened there with the hospital.
And yes, again, I understand this, and I didn't even realise at the time that she actually went to see a specialist there.
Right.
So so that was where the hospital thing come in. So I didn't even realise that. Yep.
Right. And this would have been for those listening at the time of the reading. Yes. And these readings were spaced out. There's multiple readings in here that I've categorized into topics. So at that time, that was, relevant at that time. Gordon shows me Beryl, and he says, Beryl looks quite nice. He's showing me her dressed up like she's going somewhere. She's got on a matching skirt and top, but this would be somewhere that's more formal, so to speak, an occasion where you would wear a corsage of flowers, a special occasion that she may have been to recently. She's all dressed up and looks really nice, and he likes how nice she looks. He shows me a celebration with champagne glasses clinking together, but he also brings me 60 years. I wasn't sure what the 60 years meant, whether it was anniversary, something about 60 years.
Yeah, so we couldn't quite figure that one out either. But she loves to go to the old-time dances now. So she does dress up like she's going to a ball. Yeah. And they do have special nights where they really put on the Ritz, so to speak. So when Gordon passed, because he never used to like dancing and going out, he was very much a homebody, but once he passed away, she, because they used to do it obviously when they were younger, that's how they met. At the dances, this is the country dances that, this is where most of the older couples met, is at the dances. So they used to, and then they stopped once they were married. They played cards or something anyway. So she got back into the dancing because she loves it, and she's still doing it to this very day.
Yeah.
So Gordon's been gone, I want to say 26 years. I think the day after Australia Day is when he passed, or Australia Day. Oh, Australia Day he might have passed. Anyway, it was not. Yeah, it was around that time. So from, after obviously a few months later, she started to get into it. So that was like 26 years ago. And she's still, like I said, she's still dancing today. She loves it. She's got all these ball gowns, she calls it, and she dresses up. And she just loves it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. He brings me that old song As Time Goes By. You know, that really old song, A Kiss is But a Kiss. And again, if anyone wants to sign me up, I'm available. There's an emotional wave like that comes in when he says that. If he could slow dance with Beryl to that song, that's what he's wanting to show. Yeah. And that's, something that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's and she's aware that he's around, and through the readings, she actually, if there's a special dance, she goes, "Come on, Gordo." And so it's like he's dancing with her. So she is very aware that he's around. Oh,
wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So now let's talk about the children, Gordon and Beryl's children. Gordon takes me out in the yard watching the young boys, being his children, around the age of 5 and 6 years old. And they're just maybe about 4, 5, 6. And they're just running around, chasing each other and laughing, with little blue navy shorts with striped T-shirts tucked in, running around in the backyard on the grass, chasing each other and laughing.
Yeah, and he did used to sit outside and watch them, because he was he'd be buggered from working on the farm anyway, but he'd just sit outside, and they were young boys, and they would just go and go and go. So that has been confirmed. That's what he did.
Yeah. Gordon is understanding of what his eldest son had to go through, because I asked if he had any messages for him. He said he's understanding of what he has had to go through, as in he said it's the particular mention of when they lived at the beach. He understands that and what he's been through over these years, especially since Gordon's been gone. He understands.
Yep. So he had to step into his father's shoes as an administration position, and dealing with members of the family closely, which was at time a bit of a trial, and so I understand what that means. Yeah.
Okay.
And he actually worked with his mum really good. So they were actually a good team when they worked together. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I asked if he had any messages for other members of the family, and he says he doesn't really like to bring other people into it, as in Gordon didn't always want to be doing these messages for other people. And again, each spirit is different, and this is a classic case of you cannot force them to do or say anything they simply don't want to do. Having a conversation with the spirit world is like meeting someone at the shops and trying to get a conversation out of them or force them to say something. It's just not going to happen. And it's the same, and you need to respect that.
And Gordon wasn't a gossiper. And there's a story about that he that my mother-in-law has told me, that one lady came up to her and said how quiet he was. And she said he would say something which could be a good story, but then he'd just stop and walk away, and she'd be chasing him down the road trying to get the rest of the story out of him. So he was very quiet. And he just he's the type to just sit back and just watch, and just, he was the silent support. Yeah, and he was the silent support. He was always there in the background, like he was always there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Gordon shows me something happening. I wasn't sure whether it's to do with another person. His son is there. They're outside, but his son is older. They've got torches, perhaps an accident or something, and he mentions at 9 o'clock at night.
We're not sure about this, but they did have an accommodation business for over 20 years. When I met my husband, I think they'd been in there, is it 24 years or some ridiculous amount of time. So there was always action. There was always people around, and being a holiday place where they had it, destination, there was always something going on. So, but we're not exactly sure what that was.
Yeah. I hear you, being Lisa, saying he's running around. Maybe he's hungry. Like you're talking about a dog with a red collar on and it's white. The dog's white.
Yes, and we had a big white dog who was a rescue dog. So we were still getting to know him as well. And, yes, the collar was red when it was new. So that's right. He would have been talking about our dog, yep.
I think at the time of this particular message in this reading, I don't think you had the dog then, did you? Someone else had the dog.
We were babysitting it.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah. So we're still, and he thought it was just because we're on a big property and he just galloped around like a horse. And he was just, I think he was just overwhelmed with the senses. So, yeah, that was before we got him full-time. Yep.
Yeah, yep. Gordon's a little bit disappointed that the legacy is not being carried on. He's showing me the land, the tall, long grass out in the bush, and he's on his knees and he's saying, well, who's carrying this on? You know how, like, he's picking up the dirt, and as in it just stops. And it's disappointing for him to see that the legacy stopped. Who's out there working hard? Who's out there building the farm? He's just portraying the disappointment.
Yeah, yep. And I understand what he's saying, which is happening with a lot of generations and generations. You know, they struggle to build up their property, their farming property, to just have the next generation come in and sell it.
Yeah,
gone.
Yeah.
Done. So, but he's also got a point with who's growing our food.
Yes, I never thought of that.
Yeah. So that, you know, so yeah, he does have a point, but I think he's meaning for a generational, you know, handing down like they used to in the, I don't want to say old days, but, you know, back then.
Yeah. And sometimes it may not be, you know, the son or the grandchild's desire or dream to be a farmer.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Or, you know, they want to go to the big city and earn, you know, more money where it's a bit easier and not so strenuous. So you kind of get it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Other people on the other side. Gordon shows me there is someone who works in an office. Now, this is not a typical office building. She's wanting to write about the story. She feels like a journalist or a column writer, but this goes back to when they had typewriters, so it's that long ago. The office that she's in is a small building. It's made of wood. It's like a little shacky building. There's nothing fancy or flash about it, and she wants to write about the things that happened, as in his stories about his family. But this is also giving acknowledgement to the family.
Yeah, so I don't know if this was relevant, but his sister actually wrote the family history book on the family.
Oh, right.
Yeah, from when they immigrated from Italy and came over from the get-go. Yeah, so she's yep.
Okay. He introduces me to someone called Tammy, and there was someone else. It's like there was two people there. And they're office ladies, this support team that he has around him. And they sit behind a desk with a typewriter in front of them and papers. And it was the most bizarre thing to see. I just got so caught up in the introductions, you know, as in he's introducing me. And it was like I was literally there and he's introducing me to these. It was like on the other side, he's in admin.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's in administration on the other side. And these are the people, you know, like his spirit team that he works with. He says, oh, sometimes I see terrible things happen. So this must be his viewpoint from where he is. He's at a desk, and every scene coming across that he's showing me at this point in the reading is like he's, again, like I say, administration. He's at a desk. There's printing machines, typewriters. Now, during one of the readings, Gordon comes in with a real heavy energy, and he's presenting an image of sailors. All white uniform, appears to be naval. They have caps on, like a captain's cap, white pants, white shirt. He's bringing me in a memory along with remember this. Like he's wanting to reflect back to a memory or a time for someone. What do we know about that?
So one of his sons was in the Navy when he left school.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and
Okay.
he didn't like it. He wasn't
Yep.
very happy, so he just did his time and then left. Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
That, you know,
Okay.
you're looking at a time when things were not very good within how can I say this? Like, you know, I don't want to say hazing, but you know, where things happened and no
Oh,
one talks
yeah.
about it.
Yep.
That was during that time.
Right.
I believe. I've heard stories and he couldn't watch the movie Officer and a Gentleman for a very long time.
Oh,
So
yeah, that's not good, is it?
no. So that's all I'll say about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're a bit of significant
Yes.
time. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. But yeah, the administration thing was just really bizarre. And it's interesting because spirit still do have roles on the other side.
Yeah.
You know, that they work in, or areas that, you know, of their expertise, so to speak. Okay, so let's move on to medical issues. Now, as I'm sitting in the chair doing the reading, I'm getting a lot of pressure on my stomach. And sometimes spirit will bring you something physical for you to feel how they felt, or to help and assist you in understanding what they're trying to say. And it's like I want to pull my shoulders back and straighten my back up to try and ease the pressure on the lower part of my stomach, or on the lower half of my, you know, my body, my abdomen. And I feel the abdomen stomach area is quite bulgy, like bloaty, bulgy.
Yeah, he always had issues with his stomach, which we suspect stemmed from his childhood.
Oh.
Issues there, yeah. And he had to be very careful when he ate. And if he ate too late or too much, he would be in trouble. He would not,
Wow.
it was not very nice for him.
Yeah. That's a lot of long-term damage there then, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. It is. It's, oh gosh, he was always being careful. Yeah, if he ate too late, you know, and this is where when you go out to tea at night, people just eat 6, 7 o'clock at night. He needed to eat like at 3:30, 4:30 in the afternoon. So he had a lot of trouble. Poor thing.
Yeah. Now we're just going to go on to a few these are random topics that came out in the reading.
Yep.
Now there was just a lot of mystery around Muriel. Who's Muriel? Now whenever I ask, because this came up, it was just like we needed to find out who this Muriel is. I would ask in other readings, and I just wasn't getting a direct word answer. But he did show me a picture of a Labrador, of a dog, and that kept coming up. And it was a cream-coloured Labrador. And I finally hear him say, "Look at my beautiful dog." And the dog keeps going, you know, on top of this round garden bed, and the garden bed's got grey stones around it and around the outside, and it's raised in the middle. And it had small clumps of marigolds, or some sort of small clumping flowers like marigolds. But eventually, he shows me, Muriel is a dog.
Yeah. So we can't remember the name of the dog, but the dog that you described was Beryl's father's dog. He had a dog like that.
Oh.
But we still don't understand where the Muriel come from. But you described his dog perfectly.
Right.
So,
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
He mentions raffle tickets. I'm not sure if they were something to do with a yacht or boating club or something along those lines.
So it sounds like when he used to play golf and he'd stay behind at the golf club, they may have had a raffle. I do know he used to play the comp on a certain day, excuse me, and he'd always win a frozen chicken.
Yeah.
So we always had chicken in the freezer.
Yeah.
He always come home with a frozen chicken, and they were huge. Like they were just, so it's like winning the raffle. But and I have no doubt that they would have had raffles going around at that time. Sorry, excuse me.
And is that during the time when he lived I do know that because you lived there with them, a coastal area? Was that in the coastal? Right,
yes.
okay.
Yep.
So there would have been boats and yachts and...
Oh, yeah, fishing trawlers, boats, yachts, cabin cruises, everything,
Yep. Gordon shows me a key. It's a gold-coloured metal key for a front door, and it's a modern key. So it's not like an old key. It's a modern day key, like a front door key. And he says the apartment door key.
We weren't able to figure out what that was.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Gordon shows me a boat, a Mercury, perhaps, which is a brand of boat. I see it out on the water. It's not a fishing trawler as such, just a regular family boat that you would go out in with the motor on the back and some, like a half or some sort of cabin, half cabin on the front.
Yeah, so this was back when the kids were younger, and they'd go out on Beryl's sister's boat, so Gordon's sister-in-law's family boat, and they would go out all the time. I think Apollo Bay is where they were, and they used to go out in the boat all the time, have family outings on that boat. Yeah, yep.
Oh, right. He shows me a field, like a football field, lit up at night time just before it's really dark, and there's people walking across it, but he's sitting in the stands. And it's got that country football field look to it, not like the MCG. For people who don't know, MCG is a huge, famous sports field in
Melbourne Cricket Ground is what that is called. Yeah.
Yep. So,
well, we can't confirm that. So we suspect. I don't even know if they would have had lighting back. It was before he was married. That's what Beryl said. She doesn't know. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So we can't confirm that.
Okay. Gordon shows me fancy dress. It's nighttime and there's all these people are dressed up in costumes and they all seem quite young. They're not young children, but they're like young adults, and they're at some kind of park and they've been to a party because they're carrying drinks in their hands, bottles of alcohol.
Again, this would no doubt be before he was married. So we can't confirm that.
Okay.
Yes.
So Gordon shows me time. This was really interesting, actually. And he's showing me it's like a computer program, and there's charts and they're flicking through the years really quickly, like going through, 2020, 2022, 2000, and it went on. And it's like they're flicking through really fast on a computer. And what he's referencing, this is how he's showing me that time goes by so quickly. Sometimes they'll bring you a little sip. It's not always for the sitter, it could be for everyone, but it's also time goes by so quickly.
And it is.
I know.
Wasn't it just Christmas? And now, do you know what I mean? Like now we're here and you're just like, well, what happened there?
Yeah, exactly. So these are the things that spirit will bring. And it's like the obvious, but it's like, but are you really paying attention? Are you actually utilizing your time wisely, actually doing something with your time, because it goes too quickly?
And are you doing what you love?
Yeah.
Are you loving life? Are you going out there and experiencing everything that's available? Imagine if you said yes to everything. Imagine if you, let's go and find and look at something different or a place that we've never been to before. Let's go explore. Often it's not till you get visitors that you become the tourist of your area. Why wait? And I've just got goosebumps. Why wait till you've got visitors when you could go out there and explore yourself? It's we get too bogged down in the mundane, everyday life and routines that we really do make time just to be outside and explore and experience new things, because that's what we're here for, is to learn and grow and be human.
Yep, that's it, exactly. And just during this reading, it shows you that not everything that comes through can be confirmed. And, I'm happy to put those pieces in there, because sometimes not everything can be confirmed. Sometimes it's not possible. It could be before, again, you being a sitter, or, his wife, before they came into the scene. And it may be something that was never talked about. So, these are the things that happen. And there are sometimes, questions left unanswered. Again, we there's not always that control of, I don't want to talk about this, tell me about that. I like to leave it open for the spirit world to tell me what they feel is, that they need to talk about.
Yep. And not only that, remember too, that while you may not remember or confirm anything, maybe someone else, it'll trigger a memory in someone else. So it may be days, weeks, years down the track, and they'll go, oh, I know what they were talking about.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how things happen.
Yeah, it is. I know as a sitter myself, you know, receiving a reading, you get what I call sitter's brain, where it's so overwhelming because you're trying to think as all this information's coming through. Oh, do I know about this? Who would that have been? You know, and then after the fact, you know, could be days, a week, you think, oh, I know what that is. Yep. I know exactly what that is. But at the time, when you've got all this information coming at you, it can be really overwhelming.
Yeah, it's almost like, stage fright, isn't it?
Yeah.
Deer in the headlights. Oh my God.
Yeah.
The pressure.
Yeah. And you're not just trying to, it's not just remembering your own life, you're trying to remember the life of a past loved one who's coming through. You know, so it's different when you're trying to remember your own, but if you didn't experience that with them or you heard a story, you've got to think, did they talk about that? What was that story? You know, or who might know about it? So, you know, again, there's some things in here that can't be confirmed, and that's fine. It's not about me just putting in everything that's confirmable.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Now, let's talk about Ada. Now, during this reading, he brought through his stepmother, Ada. And I did mention in there that, you know, she was a little bit cruel. Now, we will talk about that in the next episode. And she put some long-time family gossip to rest as to who she was and about her cruelness towards the children. Now, that is the reading that's going to set everything straight, because she did, in one of these readings that I've compiled here, he brought her through to tell the truth.
Because he heard us talking about her. Yes,
he did. Because when these readings were being confirmed, it was like, oh, she was like this and she did that. And a lot of people thought this about her. And I'm like, oh, geez. Well, and it wasn't too long after that Gordon slipped her into a reading and said, now let's hear the truth from Ada.
Yeah.
And it was very astonishing, but we won't go into that now. We will go into that in the next episode. Thank you very much, Lisa, for joining me today. Thank you for coming on and for your time and sharing your father-in-law's story. I appreciate it. Yep. Now, where can people find you?
So I have a Facebook page, Divine Insights with Lisa. They can contact me there if they want a reading. And I also run a group, a safe space to meditate. I keep wanting to say place, but it is a space, a safe space to meditate. Yeah. It's a private group. Where I upload my meditations that are brought to me during my meditation. Yeah, it's very interesting. Get a little bit of insight into my world.
So hold on to your socks anyway.
Guys, I don't even put the socks on. I'm flying off.
And if that hasn't piqued your curiosity, I don't know what will. Thank you. Yes. Exactly. That's it. Thank you so much for your time, Lisa. And we will see you very soon on another episode of The Medium's Table. Thanks for joining me at The Medium's Table. The universe is always speaking. Listen and let your spirit soar. Curious for more? Click on one of the videos below and remember to subscribe.